When you're getting ready to set off cruising, where and what to provision is a huge question. I've got one way to think about one possible angle on the answer. Hi, I'm Nika Waters, and welcome to the Boat Galley Podcast. I'm talking about favorites and why you might want to start there when you're thinking about the stock-up aspect of your provisioning runs. Today's episode of the Boat Galley Podcast is sponsored by fastseas.com. That's FASTSEAS.com. Plan your next passage using fastseas.com. Whether you are after speed or comfort, Fastseas will find the optimum route to your destination. Fastseas, making weather routing simple. Use coupon code GALLEY for an exclusive 10% discount. Before you can go on a passage somewhere, you probably need to make sure you've got enough food on hand. And that's where provisioning comes in. I had this conversation with a boatyard neighbor the other day. These people were new to living aboard, and they had moved to the boat from Utah. And Utah grocery options are pretty different than there are in Maryland, and the difference just felt both overwhelming and underwhelming. So they said, okay, where do you provision around here? I started to do my standard answer, talking about where I've found the best prices for stocking up, going to Costco or Walmart or Target. And then as I grabbed my favorite falafel mix to make dinner last night, it occurred to me that there might be a more nuanced way to think about it. Sure, stocking up the boat with basics when you have access to a car and a dock, or even being out on the hard, makes a whole lot of sense. Buy lots of shelf-stable essentials, particularly the bulky ones. But honestly, most staples, most of the things that I consider staples, things like flour or canned tomatoes, pasta, rice, oil, vinegar, salt, sugar, the list goes on and on. But any of those, any grocery store will have it. Heck, I think most 7-Elevens I've gone into will have most of those things that I just listed off. Make sure you've got enough of those to keep you going, but it won't be that great big of a deal to restock down the road. Sure, maybe the flour will cost 50 cents more, or the sugar will be 75 cents less, or you can't find the special brand of olive oil that you want, but you can certainly find some kind of olive oil. My MO with basics like these, particularly if I'm coastal cruising, or know that these things are readily available, for instance, flour is readily available everywhere in the Bahamas, even if they're not my favorite brands, but I make sure that I have one in reserve and one on the go. Sometimes, depending on our cruising plans and what I'm aware of that might be in terms of time between provisioning opportunities, that might mean that I have two in reserve, particularly if the ingredient is essential. And by that, flour for bread, for me, is definitely an essential. If I'm starting 100% from scratch, like there's nothing on the boat, whatever, that means I'm probably buying at least two of everything that I use on a regular basis. One is for immediate use, and one is stowed deeper. Once I grab that deeper stowed one, because I'm out of the one that was in everyday use, I start looking for the replacement. This technique has worked marvelously for us in the United States and the Eastern Caribbean. It took a load off of my mind when I was first stocking up, because I had thought, I need to buy all the things and lots of them. But it meant that I just had to be aware of what it was that I used regularly and buy a couple of those to start. It meant also that as we were cruising and coastal cruising, it was a very rare shopping trip that required a whole lot of big bulky things all at once. I didn't need to buy 5 bags of flour when I ran out of flour because I had the one in reserve and I just needed to buy one more. If we needed a 12-pack of beer, it was highly unlikely that coincided with needing flour. Pasta, I could buy that 1 pound at a time. And since I make sure that I have spaghetti and linguine and fettuccine and penne all the time, I didn't have any danger of running out of pasta. What I realized when I was thinking about how to respond to my new boatyard neighbors is that really what I want to stock up on are my favorites. The special items that make my cooking, entertaining, eating life just that much better. Maybe those things that you can't find everywhere that you've looked. I believe I've talked on the podcast before about my favorite Trader Joe's bruschetta topping. that's one of those things that I consider a favorite that I definitely make time to go to Trader Joe's to stock up on. I've tried other bruschettas. It's not the same. There's this tonic syrup that's only available mail order, and if we have tonic syrup and our soda stream, it means we don't have to carry bulky tonic. A friend of mine has a special type of dried mango that she loves, and it makes her just happy knowing she's got some tucked away. Take advantage as you're stocking up, particularly when you're starting out, of being in a place that you know with stores that you're familiar with to make sure that you've got a good pile of those goodies. For us, that's not just the bruschetta topping from Trader Joe's, but it's 2-pound blocks of Cabot extra sharp cheddar cheese. There are 3 of those in my very small refrigerator right now. There's certain boxed wine that most places it's not available, so much so that anytime I see it in a liquor store, I buy at least 1, if not 2, to stash away. I have spices from Penzeys, stashed carefully below the waterline in their perfectly sized bags. There's that Jack Rudy extra bitter tonic syrup. There's a lot of Vermont IPA. Once those are gone, it will be hard to replace them easily. We won't have a car. We might not be heading back to Vermont. Hopefully, though, when the time comes that we're out of those things, we will have discovered new favorites that we need to make sure that we've stockpiled before we move on. Not only does this wonderful serendipitous investigating new stuff to eat, it means that we're rotating through our old favorite stocks and adding more things into the mix. So if you have a question about where do you provision or what to provision first, I would ask you to think about or suggest that it might be one way to think about it is to provision with your favorites in mind and not necessarily the things that you can get any old place that you happen to go. I can't wait to share an Anchorage with you when we're both stocked up with our favorites and we can share them with each other, and maybe that will be a new favorite for us and we can tell each other where we found it, and we just get to toast to our incredible good fortune at being able to live this amazing lifestyle. Thank you so much for listening to the Boat Galley podcast. The Boat Galley is all about making boat life better, and we certainly hope that sometimes that's a small thing, sometimes it's a bigger thing, but we certainly hope we've helped you do that today. If you're going to be at the Annapolis Boat Show in a week, oh my gosh, it's in a week, please come by the booth and say hi to me and Carolyn and other members of the team. One of us will be at the booth almost all day, every single day, and we would love to say hello. I hope you have the most spectacular week.